Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the PSA podcast. Tonight we have Robert Stevenson with us, who is the owner of T1 Fitness Gym based in Mourne. Robert is in tonight to talk all things business, how he started his business, how he grew it, and to give tips and advice for anyone out there looking to do the same. Robert, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much, Matthew.
It's probably the most common question we're asking at the minute, especially on these podcasts. What's it like being a gym owner the past 12 to 18 months?
It's a learning curve, is what it is. It's been completely out of the blue, as everybody knows, and we just didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. So all we've had to do is adapt, same as everybody's had to do. The biggest and first challenge was to take the business online. We do bits and pieces online and always have done, but it's never just been solely online. Mm-hmm. It's something that I've always toyed with the idea of, but for me, anytime I've thought about it in detail, I just enjoy the person-to-person side of it far too much. Yeah. And to me, it's either one or the other. You either put yourself wholeheartedly into in-person training or online, and having to do it online was just a matter of, trying to get good at it and really quickly. With the gym being closed, it was frustrating in the sense that a lot of people do not like training online. If you go to start training in your living room, there's so many distractions. It's tough. It takes a certain kind of motivation that a lot of people don't have, myself included. I would not be a fan of training in my own living room. It's just not the same environment. A lot of people managed it really well, and we were very grateful that whenever we made the online training, the online programs, that they took it on board. We did a lot over Zoom and pre-recorded a lot of our workouts and offered training and nutrition, which was great for anybody that wanted to do it. It actually allowed us to reconnect with old clientele from Scotland, which was something that we never anticipated. Yeah. That we actually continued to train, but it was tough. There's no doubt it was tough. You're used to getting up and going into work, and all of a sudden you have no real reason to get up in the morning. You could lie on at lunchtime if you really felt like it. Apart from where you might, I sort of have about 45 coaching sessions in a week. You might have had 10. That was just the difference. And no, it was hard. Coming out of it and coming into it and coming out of it was probably the most difficult bit, because all the admin that comes with that behind the scenes, getting memberships set up, starting for a week, cancelling, pausing, every time you go to do that, maybe takes 3 or 4 hours, and it's just a long, tedious process. But we got through it. There was a lot of gyms in worse situations, maybe a landlord over their head and maybe not letting them away with rent or whatever. Because I own my facility and it's on my own premises, we were very lucky in that sense, that your overheads are less and you're not making money, but at the same time you're not paying it out, apart from your your insurance and all your bits and pieces. But it's not the same pressure that some people might have been under as a gym owner. I know numerous people who closed their gyms over the height of it. That was very sad to see.
And do you think you've come out of lockdown, whatever it is, 3 or whatever, in a stronger position?
Massively. The last lockdown for me was a great opportunity, and part of my plan was to extend the gym, and I had my plans passed, and it was just a matter of getting it done. And I feel like it would have been nearly impossible to get the job done if we weren't in lockdown. We would have managed it, but it was ideal the way that we had that 3 to 4 month period of all the workers in and all the mess and all the hustle and bustle, where it was outdoor training. Like, nobody, you have a very small handful of people who'd want to train in 1 degree temperature, blowing in snow. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to do it. And being shut just meant there was no grey area. There was no do we train, don't we train. It's right, we're not training, so what can we do with that period of time? Get the gym extended. And thankfully the workers worked well to get that done in that period, which we were very grateful for.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll touch a lot more on that later on in the show. Rob, you've obviously been involved in health and fitness for a long time, but where did that kind of love for your fitness develop? Where did that first come from?
From being a young fella playing football, as you know, as soon as you're old enough to kick a ball, that's what you're into. But it was football more so than anything else. He played for the youth team, the Valley Rangers, the whole way through until you're old enough to sort of know better, and then you change over to a decent team, like Ballyvay. But beyond that, in terms of fitness, I had no real interest in fitness or the gym until it was whenever I was 13. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and had a realisation that instead of just eating potato waffles and chicken dippers and biscuits, that I was probably going to have to eat something a bit healthier than that.
Yeah.
And diabetes management is very much your nutrition and your training and your lifestyle and your exercise and your routine. So the number one thing was, right, I'm going to have to educate myself here and live by it. And that was it. That was the start of, right, this is what good nutrition is, this is what fitness, health, gym, looking after your body effectively is. And whenever you're interested, that's the start of it.
Yeah. And then as time went on, then you must have had an interest in the personal training side of it or the coaching side of it, because obviously you own your own facility, you have to be qualified to a certain degree. How did you kind of take them steps into getting your qualifications, and what kind of brought you down that route?
The steps were, I had applied for Belfast to do sports science and fully intended to go. Got a phone call from one of my good friends, Neil Stevenson. He phoned me one night. He says, Rob, going to Dundee, are you coming? He says, Neil, I'm registered here in Belfast. And he says, come on, it'll be good crack. He says, right, I'll phone them up in the morning and see if I can get in through clearing. So phoned up Abertay and it says, yes, we'll take you, no problem. And he says, right, well sure, I'll just come. And that was the start of it. And it was a sports nutrition, which was the two things that I wanted to do. It was perfect. In Belfast it was sports science, and Dundee it was sports nutrition, so it just seemed right. So away we went, and there was that was whenever I really sort of started getting into the gym, because you've got time, you're at uni, you're educated for a very small part of the week. The rest is uni life. So within that time you're going to the gym and whatnot, and it wasn't until third year in university that I got my qualifications in 2012. So did the course, which just fit it perfectly with my degree, and then got a job in the university gym, which again was perfect. Got me a bit of experience, worked in it for about a year and a half, graduated, and then applied for a job in it was DW Sports at the time, which is now folded. But just went full time in that, and that was the path.
Fantastic. And even though, as you say, you had to go on kind of get experience coaching or whatever, you can have all the qualifications, all the paperwork in the world, but nothing beats actually, in terms of, even for me, getting out on the field and taking training sessions.
Massively.
And the same it is for you, getting into the gym and working with people, which is a massive part, and working with different programs for people or whatever it is. Nothing beats the experience that you get when you're actually coaching people.
Massively.
So then, was it always kind of an ambition then to own your own gym, to open your own place? Since you were working for people, were you kind of happy doing that, or what kind of was the steps then that led you to kind of opening or thinking about opening your own facility?
I think you always have it in the back of your head. You think to yourself, yes, that's an ideal scenario. Own premises, own gym. That is what you work towards. But at that time, that wasn't really the goal. I was in Scotland. I was thoroughly enjoying my time. I would have been happy staying there because I really, really liked Dundee as a place. It's very, very similar to Mourne, I think, where it's quite close knit in the fact it's a city, but it's a close city. Everything's in the middle, and when you're in a gym with 5,000 members, and you're in there all day every day, you soon get to know a lot of people who you see out in the street. It's like that, you're walking down the street and you know a lot of people. But was there, and well, truth be told, I was going out with somebody at the time. That ended, so that was my sort of right time to move home. So moved home, decided, right, if there's ever a time to go travelling, now's the time. So I spent all my savings, went and travelled about, did what people do, Southeast Asia, Australia, America, all them sorts of things, and came home. And that was the time. I thought, right, time to give it a go. And it was sort of September time, and I thought, right, we sat down and sort of figured out what's feasible, what can we manage, and that was where the plans came together. So,
and then the first kind of steps into that was obviously sitting down, kind of getting a plan in place, getting something, maybe on paper, get something into reality. What was your kind of ambition and goal for your gym, or did you have really any like long-term objectives of what you wanted it to be or what you wanted it to look like, or were you just kind of going with the flow, or did you have something, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to go for?
At the time, it was, what feasible, how much space have we got? That's always the number one thing. How much space can I sort of get away with here? We had a garage, which the first step is get the architect in and get the architect to say, right, what can you do with this garage to make it a gym? Got the plans together, and whenever we sat down and looked at it, the idea I had in my head was a slightly bigger scale. So there was only one more option, that was to basically knock down a different shed, an old milking parlour, and made it the size that we sort of thought was affordable. And from there we just built a square house. What was the most simple thing that we could build, cost effective, and then from that, once we had the structure, we worked back. So you sort of do a bit of research, you think, right, what ideally, how do I service the most people here? How do I offer, the people who will spend X amount, sort of the class structure, which is more cost effective, right up through to your one-to-one. And once you've that done, then you start looking on the internet and you say, right, I like the look of this, I like the look of that, and you start putting it together as to what you fancy. And at the time, the whole gym equipment thing wasn't as expensive as it is now. It was very expensive, but everything's up 30-40%. So back then it was a bit more affordable. Sat down, made a list and thought, right, this is everything that I want in the gym. Is that feasible? Does that fit into my structure? And if it does, great, let's get it. And if it doesn't, it gets the chop. I just build, and that's it comes together.
So you have your gym up, you have it going, you have the first couple of people in. What was then your steps to grow your business? Did you have an idea of what kind of you wanted your business to be like long term, and were you working towards that, or were you just kind of taking it week by week and seeing how many people were coming in? Was the members growing, or what was your kind of, what was your plan behind growing your business?
Business plan. The council at the time, I don't know if they still do, offered a free service, which they took you in and they sat down and they worked it out quantifiably as to, here are your services, this is how much you charge, how many of these do you need to get to a certain number. The time in different books, the business way of looking at it is they call it the freedom number, which is you work out all your bills and all those sorts of things, and you think, right, if this is what your salary is going to be, these are your expenses, these are your overheads, these are your memberships, and you plow it all in together to say, right, I need to do X amount of these sessions, X amount of those sessions, and then you put your unforeseeable expenses and all into that, and it gives you a very definitive, this is what I'm working towards. But there was another very interesting, there was a book that I read over in Scotland called Think and Grow Rich, which is one of those like pure old school business books, and it's one of the best books I ever read, because I still have the plan that I made on a piece of paper as to to get from A to B, backtracking, how am I going to do that in a business sense? I still have the sheet, and it was a 5-year plan, and we're at the end of the 5 years now, and you can see it progressing when you made that plan. And I would, if somebody has an idea or a venture, I would highly recommend to read that book and take the time and apply what it says, because sometimes those old things that seem a bit stupid are just real gold when it comes to business, I think.
In terms of then trying to get more members in, trying to build up your clients, you know, how did you kind of go about that part? Because you can have all the facilities in the world and all the ideas, but if nobody's coming to your gym or nobody's paying your membership, you know, it's not really worth it.
No, it wouldn't be very useful. I was quite fortunate that even when I was in Scotland, I had a quite good social media following from back home, because from playing football, you know, you're only in Scotland 6 months, and then you're home for 6 months of summer effectively, and you're still making all the connections through football. You know, even having a family that around Mourne, like dad being in a band and bits and pieces, going to Mourne Presbyterian Church, if you're seen, you're sort of known, and people know what you do, and Mourne's quite a, you know, people talk to each other, so they know Robert, he's doing fitness, blah blah blah, and it was just a matter of Robert's moved home, people see the gym going up, so there's a bit of interest there. So it was really only a matter of, you know, wording your posts well, putting it out on social media, and the first week before I was opened, my week was full, so that in itself was just, it was mind blowing for me that there was a full week with only the evidence of what had been done previously in Scotland. And once people came, it was just a matter of, right, need to do this well. You know, if you know you can get people in and enjoy what you're doing and, you know, do the thing right, it's just trying to retain who's coming. And if you do a good job with the first people that come through the door, it's not long to the word spreads. Word of mouth is massive for any business around here. It's the biggest thing beyond anything else, word of mouth.
So your gym's obviously expanded very much, you know, everything looks fantastic from the outside. What were the challenges that you come up against on your way to, I think you're 5 years in, are you now? Was there any specific challenges or?
Plenty of challenges. It's a really sociable job, but the very unsociable hours. Like, you know, the alarm goes at the minute it's going at 4:45 in the morning, and you know you're working pretty much right through the day. You book yourself out a bit of free time in the afternoon, which is when everybody else is at work, and then you work right through to maybe 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening whenever everybody else is free. And come on Saturday, you know, once football starts, Saturday will become football day again. You'll work 10 or 11 o'clock. But at the minute, whenever there is no football and you've been closed for the guts of a year, you're not turning people away. You're working Saturdays. So you find you're working Saturday 5, 6 p.m. and all of a sudden your week's gone, and then it's just the same again. So you just have to be not very careful, but it's a challenge that you work. You just have to work hard. That is a challenge, but as we said at the start there, it's a challenge that you've brought onto yourself, like nobody's making you do it. So you just have to keep the fire lit, you know, keep at it. One of the other challenges, you know, you just have to do all the jobs. Like, you are the cleaner, you are the accountant, you are the every part of that business until you get yourself established. You are doing all the jobs. Like, come a Saturday, whatever needs done come the end of the week, like, that is up to you to do it until you can get to a point where you think, right, now it's more advantageous for me to pay that person to do that for me because my time is more valuable spent doing something else. But getting to that point, that just doesn't happen at the start. That was a big challenge. But even one of the most challenging things that they don't teach you on a personal training course is what happens when somebody decides they don't want to train anymore. You know, they do not teach you that. They should teach you that. Like, whenever it gets to a point and all of a sudden somebody just texts you, I'm not going to keep training, or for whatever reason, you know, I'm not gonna be back next week, I'll give you a shout, sort of thing. And you think to yourself, is that my fault? What have I done? Like, that's a hard thing to take until you get yourself sort of over that and just have a realisation that that's life. Like, whether somebody, maybe their children have a different after school activity and now they can't come, or simple as that, maybe they can't afford to come anymore, or maybe they just don't want to, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've done something wrong. And it might. I'm not saying it's not.
I would sit, and if somebody didn't want to come back to one of my sessions, I'd be sitting going like, what did I say?
What did I do?
What did I not do?
Yes.
You know, what's happened? It could be something very simple, as you say, but you know, I always be thinking, what could I have done better to retain them or keep them or stop them from making that decision? But it might not even be anything what you done personally yourself.
It's hard. That was a challenge at the start, but in this sort of industry, I feel like you have to be thick-skinned and you have to have an understanding that is just not always the case. It just is the way it is. Sometimes it's that person's better for them that in that hour of the week they're not at the gym, they're away looking after their family or doing something different, or they're just tired. You know, they just need to lie down. That can be the case. So that was a big challenge too, but challenges come. Staff has been a challenge too. You know, whenever you sort of have a very high standard that you've set yourself, to try and bring people in to meet that standard is massively challenging. That you want every wee detail to be just exactly the way you want it, which doesn't always happen.
How do you look? Do you, if you're employing somebody, do you kind of coach them to bring them up to the way you would do it, or would you let them tear away and just put kind of their own, you know, their own spin on it? What way would you approach that?
The first way.
Yeah.
I sort of have a very clear protocol wrote out that is like from this person steps through the door, this is the path they are coming on to. You know, this is what they need trained in, X, Y and Z. This is how I hope they will progress. But you still have to let them do their own thing to a degree, because you don't want a carbon copy exactly of yourself. Otherwise there's no dynamic in the whole thing. It takes a bit of, you know, this is the boy that's doing this and he's doing that, but it works real well together. But it all has to be, programming's the same, timing's the same, structure's the same. You know, the fundamentals are all identical. Like, any employee you have must be as good or better than you are, or they are failing your business. Simple as that. And as soon as they aren't that, and they're told and they can't get better at it, well, there's a problem. I'm not going to talk about anything or anyone on here, but you know, that is something that has come up in the past, which is hard. Like, you put all your time into something, you spend hours and hours and hours, and it just doesn't work. It mightn't be anybody's fault, it just mightn't click. And if it doesn't click and it's not right for the system, then you cut your loss. But I have been very fortunate with staff. Like, Aaron Park has been there now for pretty much the guts of 5 years. As I say, I was booked out at the start, and it was only 3 or 4 months in where I had a very straight realisation, I cannot keep turning people away, we need to get somebody in here. And there was a couple of people came, didn't show up in time, first session, end of. No good. If you can't make your first session on time, you're not getting a job. But you know, Aaron came in, he has worked exceptionally well, and you know, it took Aaron took through the protocol as such, but he took it all on board. That is, to me, what a good worker is, somebody who gets a bit of advice but takes the advice and applies it, and did that really quickly and really well. And you know, we've had another trainer there, Tara, who has done the exact same. Difference being, she was a member, so she was in the system, and having somebody that sees how the thing runs, everybody knows them, which wasn't the case at the start because there was no gym for us. She's been coming through it, and if you're looking for somebody to bring in somebody that knows the way of the thing and is well liked is the way to go, I think. And in future, that is something that you nearly get the person first. If you see somebody that you think that person has the calibre, has the motivation, has the drive, then you keep your eye on that person and be thinking in your head, right, there's the person for this job.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the opportunity comes up, you just sort of hope they apply, and thankfully did. And that's what I would say in terms of bringing on staff, that if you see that somebody's right for the job, you want to try and get them.
Mm-hmm.
So you do.
So you say there about staff, you've built up, your clients that you couldn't handle yourself, and then you brought Aaron in, and then you brought Tara in as well. You've built up a bit of a team. What is there next steps for that? Is there maybe something else you see down the line, maybe that you would like to add to the team, or maybe you don't want to say? But
well, the last sort of bringing in Megan, who previously Megan's made Mourne quite a lot, I believe. She has started Inhale Yoga, her own studio, where was previously Graham's Ice Cream Shop. So bringing in yoga and Pilates to the gym was the last venture. Mm-hmm. But Megan was only getting going and lockdown came in again, so really now next Thursday is whenever we're going to get Pilates introduced and yoga introduced, so that's like just a whole different category of clientele. Mm-hmm. And it's another thing to offer our members. That's what I always try to be thinking, how can I increase mm-hmm. what we can give our members, and that was a good way of doing it, I think. And also very relative, 2 athletes, 2 sports people, the benefit of yoga and Pilates, the amount of footballers that you hear tell of that say that is a big thing, is great. And because between ourselves being so into football, we understand that, mm-hmm. and it's good to be able to see something and bring something in. Like, there's not that many, you'll know yourself, boys in the Valley or boys in Ballyveigh that are going to be doing yoga or Pilates and stuff with them, and there's a few. Yeah. And it's great to see, but the more they do it, the more they'll see the benefit of it. And sports massage was the other thing. Bringing Abigail King in, who's now Abigail Graham, but King Massage is her name. That's another major thing that through sport and generally training, that whenever you're training, you're putting your body through all that it's like an engine that needs serviced, and if you don't look after it, like, it's not going to stand by you. Mm-hmm. Chances are that something's going to give, which is where injuries kick in. If you can get a regular massage, even once a month, try and look at it more like prehab than rehab, that if you try and keep on top of it before things go wrong, less likely you're going to get an injury and be out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, whatever it would be. So again, just offering that extra thing to the members. Hopefully they see the benefit in it and see what we're trying to do for them, mm-hmm. as such.
So Rob, you're obviously trying to bring lots of different people into your gym and into your facility to cater for all different types of needs, massage, yoga, things like that. You're trying to build like a very strong team there.
Yeah. Very
good, that's excellent. And a bit like myself, we're trying to get a goalkeeping coach in, we're trying to get an assistant coach in.
Yes.
We're trying to, as you say, maybe be different to lots of other people.
Set yourself apart.
Doing the same, yeah.
Set yourself apart.
So I don't really think it's probably the last few years it's become a wee bit more prevalent in sport, but strength and conditioning and gym work. How would you kind of relate that to sport and probably to football more specifically?
Very, very simply, it's essential. If you want to get the best out of yourself as a footballer, whenever you see the strength and conditioning programs that Premier League teams, any football team that is professional or even semi-professional, you will find they have a strength and conditioning program in place, and the higher you go up, the more money they spend on it. Same with their nutrition. At the lower levels there's not enough money for it, but as you go up and up the chain, you will see it gets more specific and more particular, and there's more of a focus on it, and that is for a good reason. if you take the fitness aspect of it, yes, you can build your fitness going for a run, but having that sort of strength endurance is a big thing. Whenever you're getting knocked about, like, you need to be strong. You're coming in for a tackle. If you're weak as water, like, somebody's just going to knock you over, you're no use. Like, even just having a bit of lean muscle will make a massive difference. Like, you don't need to be bulky, you don't need to be anything, just even having a bit of core strength. You're coming in, you're tight, like, that makes a massive difference on a football pitch. Like, a lot of footballers that we've had coming through the door, we've had a few that have been playing for the Valley, and have many people remarked on the difference that they can see in that player, not knowing that they've been at the gym, saying how much quicker, how much sharper, how much stronger they look. And whenever you hear things like that, you just think to yourself, that is perfect, like, that is why we're doing it. Injury prevention's a big part of it. As I said about the yoga and the Pilates, you know, that's one aspect of it. But even doing plyometric training, you know, between building up the strength in your glutes and building up your hamstrings and then around your legs, like, those are the common problems that footballers get, or athletes, or anybody that's doing that. If you're doing your plyometrics, you know, that's building up your speed. A lot of the injuries that are coming seem to be whenever players decelerate, you know, and that's when they're popping hamstrings and whatnot. If you're practicing that in the gym, practice maybe not being the right word, but training that function of, you know, speed, picking it up, slowing it down quick, the likelihood of getting an injury drops greatly. But it obviously doesn't drop to zero, or nobody would be injured in the Premiership, you know. But you're just decreasing the likelihood of somebody getting injured. Just what I was mentioning there in terms of speed, like, that is where you can sprint all day, but you're not putting on the muscle. Like, that is where the speed's coming from, is the power that you can get through your muscle, and that's where you're putting the muscle on, is in the gym. Like, they talk about sport specific training. You are training the movement patterns that you will use on the football pitch, and if you can do that in the training environment, it will directly relate to improving your game. Mobility, that's probably comes through the yoga and the Pilates, but even just being in a scenario that you do a bit, a lot of people don't do any mobility and don't do any flexibility. Like, yes, they'll maybe touch their toes before a game, stretch their groin out, you know, that's the typical stretches. But spending maybe 5-10 minutes every day just giving your back a stretch, giving your hamstrings a stretch, opening your hips up, whenever you come to a Saturday, you will feel a lot better for it, instead of starting and thinking, flip me, I feel pretty tight today. Like, whenever you go, you're good to go. You feel good about yourself, and if you feel good physically, you're going to feel good mentally. You feel good mentally, like you are performing that day. Instead of going, feeling like a bag of dung, like you're no use. You know, it all comes from the head. If you get the body right, it gives the head a better chance. So I think, anyway.
Yes. And would you, if a footballer came through your door, or a hockey player, a rugby player, or Gaelic player, whatever it is, you would program their routine or their gym session to their particular needs relating to their sport?
Could do. Depends what they come through the door asking for. We have our one-to-one training, or we've had people who have been of a higher standard, who have got the drive to come in and spend that wee bit more money for the one-to-one training. They would have it specific, every aspect of it for their need, for their sport. You have the second level down from that, which would be a small group. In a small group, they could be in with up to 3 other people. So they have it tailored for them, but it's not as specifically tailored for them as it would be in a one-to-one scenario. But you will be incorporating wee bits and pieces that are specific to them, but not just as specific. The next step would be a bigger class, or it's not tailored for them at all, unless they come to a sport-specific class. So we have sort of took this on board and seen that there is a need for this locally. So within the next couple of weeks, we are going to start just a strength and conditioning class for people who play sport. So we can do just what you're saying there. Basically, the muscles people use for running, that from Gaelic to football to rugby to hockey to cycling to everywhere that you use pretty much everything, that you are training the plyometrics, training the strength, training the speed, training the agility, and that's what we're working towards. That's in the pipeline very, very soon. But even from doing generally classes, doing the large group training, it's all specific. Like, it's not specific, but it's relative. So when somebody's sprinting, somebody's shuttling side to side, somebody's lifting weights, somebody's doing all their core work, they are going to get the benefit of that on the pitch, even though it's not specifically drilled to be a sport specific drill. You still get the benefit from it. So
fantastic. So you do cover a wide range of classes and needs, and
yeah, very much so. Some of our classes are aimed at kind of lifting more weight. Some are aimed at with a bit more cardio in them. We have a core class. We have more of a conditioning class, which is kind of more strength endurance based. But to be honest, the way lockdown has been this last wee while, because you don't know if you're inside, well, you're outside this last wee while. Say you take an evening that you think it might rain, you're only using specific equipment. So this last wee while, it hasn't been as specific as it has always been before COVID came about. But now that things are sort of going back to the way they were, we're able to make our classes more specifically what they were. So when you're coming to a class, you have a better idea of what you're coming to, as opposed to just coming for a general class. So now, hopefully, we're going to start a spin class in next week. We're going to start a boxing class next week, because with the extension now we've got 2 training spaces. So we've sat down, that's where we're going to be able to make the sport specific class, make the boxing class, bring in the yoga, bring in the Pilates, as well as having our general interval training classes. That has been in the plan. So we're just getting to that stage, and we're going to have to work out the nitty gritty, what's working, what's not working, because it's anybody's best guess. So we're going to try things, see what people like, see what works with the timing, see what works with the space, and hopefully we'll get it right.
Hopefully it's all trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah, to a certain degree it's a learning curve, because we haven't done it. We've done it in a lot of different ways, but we just haven't had 2 training spaces running side by side and trying to coordinate the 2, and it's exciting. It's at a point that we're looking forward to getting it going.
So you obviously have built and are running a very successful business at the minute, and there's I know of lots of people who are starting jewellery business, fitness business. I'm only starting my football business as well. What advice would you give to people? What kind of tips would you give to people about starting their own business? Because even though it is in lots of different parts of business, all the principles, I would say, would be similar.
Yeah, very much so. As we mentioned earlier, you have to have a plan. Just going in blind isn't wise, in my opinion. Yes, you have to throw yourself into the deep end, but having a structured plan as to knowing how much things are going to cost, those are the things that you need to get worked out. Because if you start spending money and all of a sudden you've no money left and you haven't got things set up, like, you're snookered. You've just wasted all of that money. So having a good business plan in place to start with, and having a vision of what you actually want. You really sort of have to know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, you haven't got a goal, and if you haven't got a goal, where's your motivation going to come from whenever times get a bit rough or a bit tough? If you're sort of only half into it, that's when you're going to think, can I really be bothered with this whenever it gets a bit ropey. COVID being a good example of that. Like, if you were doing something that you didn't really like and things started getting harder, you would think to yourself, right, maybe just not bother this anymore. So having that idea and that vision and that plan in place, to me is major. But another part of it that we try and always do is do what you say you're going to do. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. There's nothing more annoying than somebody telling you that they're going to do X, Y, and Z and they just don't. So that is one of our sort of big things that we think, right, say you're going to do it, just didn't do it. You have to be the customer or the client or the member or whatever that is, always put yourself in their shoes. So if I was this person coming through the door, what does that person sound like answering the phone? Does it sound like they're in a rush and they can't be bothered talking to me, or does it sound like they can talk to me all day? They come through the door, what's the first thing they see? Is it a dirty mat? Is it a hanky lying in the corner? Or is it a nice clean barbell? Is it everything tidy? Is it everything organised? Is it a member of staff saying, hello Matthew, how's your day going? You're very welcome, come on in, making you feel good about yourself, not here's Matthew. Matthew talks and talks and talks. Like that. If you put yourself in their shoes, what would you want to see? How would you want to be treated? How would you want to be brought in, welcomed? Go through the journey from A to B to C. When I go into the toilet, is there piss all around the toilet, or is it nice and clean? Is it, that's what you have to do. But you have to do that regularly. No point doing it once and then a month down the line you forgot about it. Keeping on top of your systems. So having systems in place to save yourself time. Like, if everything you go to do in some way there's a system, through your programming, through your cleaning, through your when do you reply to your emails, through right at this time of the day I'm going to set a bit of time aside to do X, Y, or Z. All of a sudden your week has a structure of some sort. It's not always as ideal as that, but every day 7 a.m. you're training yourself. And it'd be very easy to be like, somebody needs a 7 a.m. session, but 7 a.m. is your only time of the day that you set yourself aside to train. You need to keep yourself right. Because
would you ever put a 7 a.m. session in to take your own training time out?
In a circumstance that was out of the ordinary. So if, say, one of the other members of staff were on holidays, then for those 3 weeks I'll probably not get much training done, because I know that I have my own clients to get in, but 7 a.m. is the only time I can squeeze their clients in to get them a session. Then yes, I would 100% put them in. Or if some week out of the ordinary somebody kicks the bucket and they need to get a different session in somewhere, whatever reason, that's not a good example.
Yeah, I get the idea.
Out of the ordinary, then yes, you'll always try and cater for somebody. But on a regular basis, no, you would not put somebody regularly into your regular own training spot. Like, if you let yourself go, if you don't put time for yourself out, it's a road to nowhere.
Yeah, is that just to keep yourself in a good routine? And obviously to train yourself, is that just to keep yourself?
It's for numerous reasons. It's for one, if you get into a habit of not training, you'll soon get in a rut. That seems to be very common. You let one session go, you let 2 sessions go. Like, it is a daily, it's a task, but it's something that you need to do. Maybe not every day, like maybe 2 times a week's enough for somebody. But if that 2 times a week becomes once a week and then every other week, you're not going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
But in terms of, it's mainly from a diabetes. The main way that you can get good control of your diabetes is to have a routine, to try and eat the same amount of food at the same time, train so your training effect is the same every day, that you have some form of predictability. Like the weeks where my routine's up the left, my diabetes goes up the left, because your meals are coming at random times. It's just totally different. If you can have a set structure for your training, you will always find your diabetes and your nutrition and your results. The results from your own training. Like, whenever you're trying to maybe lean down a wee bit, say you're going on a holiday in 3 months, you need to get your training pretty specifically in check if you want to be where you want to be in those 3 months. which is the same for anybody. Somebody comes through the door, say you've somebody coming in to play football, and you need them on point for X amount of weeks time. You're not going to want to see them starting to miss training sessions.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. You want your team to be training consistently, training together to get the best out of that squad. Otherwise, the team that is training together is going to beat you, more than likely. So sort of a tangent there, but the answer is only the odd time.
Yes. And our final question, is there 3 or 4 key messages or key principles that you would reinforce to your clients or even your staff?
Don't be a snowflake. So by that I mean you need to be thick-skinned. Like if it's raining, I don't mean thick-skinned in that sense, but you can't let wee things put you off. Like if you're going to let a wee thing ruin your day, you're bait before you start. Like you have to be of a strong mentality that whenever things start going pear-shaped in life, that you don't let it drag you with it. That's a big thing. If you can, as I said earlier, keep the head right, it generally falls into place. If you go down a negative line with yourself, you'll find you'll drag everybody down around with you. But that all comes from having a good support network, in my opinion. I think that is massive in terms of business, in terms of training, in terms of nutrition, in terms of anything. It'd be like the children coming to you for coaching. Their support network is whoever's bringing them to them sessions, whether it's them paying for it, their parents paying for it. Like that is their support network. That's in place. They'll do well, probably. For us, it's having that support network of having a loved one who's not trying to feed you full of a chocolate bar. Who's saying, right, let's go for a walk, not like Johnny Pang, Saturday, Sunday. Having that conversation with the people around you saying, like, this is what I want, this is what I want you to do for me. I want you to sort of be there for me in this sense and sort of work with me, not against me. If that person thinks enough of you, you would like to think they'll do that. And that's a big part of your success. I would say, as well as that, being consistent. So whether that be consistent with the service you deliver, every day you have to treat a session like it's that person's first and last session. You give them 100% of your attention. You're not on your phone. You're not thinking about what you're having for dinner. That person is 100% of your focus for that 45-minute period or however long your session is. Whether that be, in a different note, being consistent with your own training, as we just mentioned, that is where you'll get the best from yourself. You'll get the best from others. That you show up, they show up every week. That's the way it works. They work hard for you, you work hard for them. That is a brilliant working relationship, and everybody looks forward to it and everybody does well in that scenario. Same, you have somebody coming to training. Say somebody's coming to train for Darrell on a Tuesday, Thursday night. If they're coming dreading that training, they're thinking, can't be bothered, like that's not going to last for us. They're coming, all the boys, bit of crack, training's good, drills are good, people scoring, everybody's going home on a high, show up on a Saturday on a high, more chance that Saturday's going to be 3 points. You know what I mean? It all comes from the consistency, the commitment, the effort, but it has to come both ways through staff, client, management team, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
But I feel like that has to be an honest conversation the whole time. It's up to the staff to motivate the players, but it's up to the players to motivate each other. Same in the gym. Everybody comes into the gym, it's a bit flat, nobody's winning. For people coming in, well, how's it going, blah blah blah, then everybody's in good form, the class kicks off, everybody's motivated to work hard and everybody wins, so, but that was coming from the consistency. Honesty would be a big part of it as well. Like, if somebody's struggling with anything, it's important for that person, I think, to say, whether that be same in a football team, if somebody's struggling with something, they're just not right at themselves, to have that conversation with their coach. For us, if I had a member coming in and said to me, right, I haven't got much sleep, I'm having a bad week, child's being a real pain, whatever it would be, well, I know, right, I'm going to maybe take 10 kilos, 5 kilos, 2 kilos off the bar, so that person, all of a sudden, they're maybe feeling weak that day. Well, the last thing they need is not to be able to lift the bar. You know, but unless they come in and tell me that, I'm not going to know that. So that is where that sort of honest relationship comes in, and it's very, very important. What else would I say? Beyond that, for a lot of people, it's just showing up. You know, a lot of people come in and they have a results-based goal, which means they want to look like this by then, or they want to run X amount of miles in X amount of time. So those people need to be on point. Like, they need to be coming in, generally hitting their numbers, whatever it would be. But on the flip side of that, you have the people who just want out of the house. They come, makes them feel good, they do a bit of exercise. Youngsters are at home, it's maybe not even the youngsters, maybe just getting away from work, and they come into the gym and they don't care how much they squat. They just do not want to have to think about anything. They want to be told, right, lie down there, do a few V-ups. Okay. You know, they mightn't be perfect V-ups, but it doesn't matter to them, as long as to you they're doing it safely. They're happy, you're happy, they go home happy, you go home happy. You know, for both those kind of people coming through the door, it's a totally different session. But, you know, if you cater for that session for both people, it works. You know, like, if that person comes through the door that's just there to get out of the house, that's it. They're winning as soon as they come through that door. As long as they have a good session, they enjoy themselves a wee bit. There's a bit of crack, same as the football, there's a bit of crack, it just makes all the difference. So yeah, just getting through the door is a big part of it for a lot of people. That's really it in that question, I think.
Well, Robert, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yes.
I haven't really spoke much to you before tonight, but it feels like I've really got to know you well over the time that I've been talking to you, and I wish you all the best for your future.
Yes, thank you very much.
Whatever it may be. Hopefully the gym continues to grow. Hopefully you continue to be successful, and wish you every success for the future.
Thanks very much for having me, Matthew.